morning, everyone. I am the USDM project and portfolio manager. I head all the delivery and also the practice for the life sciences for ERP systems. I've been in the ERP area for 25 years, going through multiple different products like Oracle, NetSuite, also SAP at some point. And I have been in the life science industry for more than 15 years. Some of the challenges and issues that we had having the systems validated and compliant was one of the main reasons that I joined USDM. And USDM, we will present the company in a minute, but we focus only on life sciences, and I've been heading all this practice in the ERP area, partnering with NetSuite. Good to have you here, yes. Peter? You're on mute. You're on mute,
Peter, you're muted.
How about now? Sorry about that. Okay.
Yes.
Well, I was saying thank you, everyone, and we'll get started with the agenda. It's packed, but we're keeping it simple at the same time. I'm going to start off with just a little bit of background on the industry and some of the industry trends that we're seeing. What our other life sciences companies are trending, what they're looking for. And then we're going to turn it over, as Alex mentioned, USDM, their product, how they can support, and then turn it over to Ken to talk about PCG. We'll open it up for questions and answers and then wrap it up with resources where you can reach us moving forward. So some of the interest and industries that you see with life sciences. The research and development, so a lot of these companies are basically, they research, develop, and manufacture really products to improve our lives. And that's the intent of life sciences, such as pharmaceuticals or medical devices. They're typically backed by venture capital companies, and that's where they're getting their funding, or they're partners with. So there's a lot of cost management when it comes to that. So a lot of their interest in what they're gearing towards is to keep track of costs and how to manipulate costs and to what their needs and requirements are. So project management, for instance, you'll see that they need that in order to keep track of certain products that they're doing. But because their products is usually specific, it's usually focused on a specific medical device. For instance, pins for the spinal cord, or other means, or it's a specific drug, like especially like what we've seen in the last couple of years, right? With COVID, everybody became specific on focusing and trying to find a solution for that to help us, as I mentioned, right? It's just to improve our lives. But clinical trials, so they go through clinical trials. You may see that they're in that phase, or they will utilize contract manufacturing or development manufacturing. So they're outsourcing that product for other companies that have the facilities to do that, as they're just more focused on lab work and that R&D. And then compliance, of course, huge representation here. They really do need that almost 100% of the time. FDA compliance, perhaps HIPAA, traceability, and then reporting. So reporting is going to be huge. Both USDM and PCG is going to talk about how they help with the reporting, right? Because that's very important to really have that detail and that information. Move into procurement. So a lot of these companies don't have customers at that point. So procurement management is huge for them. They really need to understand, again, who their vendors are, who the contract manufacturers, so they can pay them and then receive product or services. The industries. So I do have one kind of interesting here. It's not quite an industry, but we should really review it as such, as the contract research organization. These are companies that a lot of these industries you see listed here are contracting this company. A CRO Usually it's contracted, and it's whether it's the pharmaceutical company, biotech, medical devices, they go to them to say, help us now find an ERP system, or find us a solution, or find us, as I mentioned, a contract development a manufacturing organization. And so that's where a lot of the detail, a lot of companies are coming from that, and they are coming to us, whether it's NetSuite or PCG or USDM, to say, hey, I have this this company, this customer that's in the life science industry that needs help. Can you support it? So the industries that you see list here: pharmaceuticals, medical devices, biopharm, biotech. We also see nutraceuticals, agriculture, cosmeceuticals, right? A lot of the cosmetics, and of course, food processing. So food processing, a little different than food and beverage, just to keep that in mind and take it in consideration. This is where you're transforming the agriculture product into food, right? That may be used into something else to create bread. So think of, um, that you're getting corn, and then you transform it into other means. And then a food and beverage, maybe pop the popcorn and bag it and so on. So next, I want to discuss a little bit about just the industry trends. As I mentioned, there's 5, and then I'll turn it over to USDM, to Alex. But here is what you're seeing a lot, what contract research organizations I just discussed and gave a little bit of background on that. These are the customers. So there's a lot of requirements and needs from these companies. A lot of companies are going to them to help them decipher what they need to do to move into the next step. Most importantly, what they're looking for, what life science industry customers are looking for, is that connectivity, the cloud computing, because what they're looking for is the ability to have the collaboration, to have remote collaboration between internal resources, really to support, to ensure innovation. And so that information isn't lost. So take that in consideration, how now we're really a global company, we're global. So a lot of these companies, they need that ability to do so, whether they are in Asia, whether they are in Europe, in the United States, just to have that collaborative means in order to move during their R&D or during their commercialization. Next is the ESG, and this is not just life science. So a couple of these, if you notice that the environment, social, and governance, or the supply chain, right? These are across many industries. Again, ESG, given the global climate change, companies and us as consumers really are taking a look at companies, how they're reducing their carbon footprint. So we need, they're looking for support from ERP systems, support from consulting that have, very high ESG compliance that can really attract them. And then supply chain, of course. With supply chain, yes, we understand inventory and inventory management, but really take in consideration the means where you have cross borders. These companies, as I mentioned, they are either R&D and the manufacturing could be in completely different global regions. So the cross border needs to be reliable. They're really looking at that inventory visibility across the globe, and perhaps even reshoring or nearshoring, right? This is the newest trend across many industries, is nearshoring. So as here, if we take in consideration we're in the United States, we may want to bring our product or our warehouse near our shore. So perhaps Mexico or Canada, as opposed to it being across the Atlantic or the Pacific. Last, regulatory policies. This is huge. 100% of the time, they are looking for FDA requirements to be compliant, HIPAA, and pedigree traceabilities and things of that nature. So take a look at these trends, and when you're talking to these customers, that's usually what's on top of their mind. And now I'm going to turn it over to Alex.
Thank you, Peter. I'm gonna share my screen now, or you're gonna be.
Yeah, I'll let
Thank
you. I'll turn
Right.
it over to you to
Right.
share
Thank
your
you.
screen. So let me.
Let me know when you can see my screen, please.
Yep, I'm trying to stop.
Yes, we can see it, Alex.
Okay. Thank you, guys. So USDM Life Sciences. We have been operating in the life science business for 20 years, since the inception. The only thing we do is life sciences. And when we say life sciences, we really mean all the compliance, regulation, everything that has to do with FDA or other entities and government entities in other countries. We've been working with multiple life science companies, biotech, pharma, medical device, and like I said, we only focus on making the systems, machines, manufacturing devices compliant and make them audit proof, if you will, in case there is any government requires for evidences or product development, changes, everything. We cover all that, and we've been in the market for multiple years, and we've been partnered with Oracle for around 15 years. So what do? We typically, like I said, we work with partners like NetSuite, Oracle, and we perform audits on those vendors so we can leverage those audits for our customers. Also, we review all the procedures for our customers. We make sure that they are compliant, that all the QMS requirements for GxP, HIPAA, and also SOX have the proper documentation, and they are bulletproof for any audit. As part of that process, we produce testing protocols for depending of the software, but in the case of ERP systems, we perform all the different protocols for the implementation, for the installation, for the infrastructure, and we review all the SOPs as well to make sure that the companies, have all the documentation of what they're going to do, how they're going to do it, and how they're going to prove that they did what they say they were going to do. And as part of this, we have been building some products around the new challenge that companies are having now, moving their ERP systems into the cloud. One of the main challenges is how do they keep a system in a validated state in the cloud? That was one of the main topics that came up in some of the forums like five or 6 years ago. Obviously, moving ERP systems into the cloud, manufacturing systems into the cloud, approvals into the cloud, electronic signatures into the cloud becomes a challenge, because in the past, when the customers had an on-prem system, they control their patches, their releases, their change controls, the approvals of that. When you move into the cloud, the main challenge is customers don't have the 100% control of what is going to happen. So they have to have very solid procedures to make sure that in case of an audit, they can prove that the cloud environment managed by the vendor is fully compliant. And USDM, along with Oracle, we have been working on this approach, and we have built a very good product that actually ensures that in 2 punches, right? You get your system in a validated state quickly with all the approvals, evidences, testing, OPQs, IQs. If you are in the life science, you know what I'm talking about, all these different testing and protocols that need to happen. And then after that, we make sure that if Oracle or any other software vendor is going to apply a patch, do an upgrade on the system, do a change in the infrastructure, all that procedure is fully compliant and it doesn't break anything, and you don't get sued by the FDA or anybody that you're not having a compliant system. That's essentially what we do, right? And like I said, Oracle and USDM have been a partnership for 15 years. We collaborate with their product development. We make sure that before the features come out of the market, they are somehow compliant or they are ready to be validated. The way we do this for NetSuite, as well as all the Oracle different applications, is we audit and we document all the software development lifecycle procedures, their internal training, and we make sure that the installation procedures for the qualification of that installation process is fully compliant, that they have the proper people trained, that they have solid procedures, and that the risk of having any patch, change, upgrade in the infrastructure or the software is actually compliant and is low risk. We include HIPAA, FDA, CFR Part 11, SOX compliance as part of our deliverables. So one of the main challenges also that NetSuite has had in the past few years is all the installation qualification. In the case of the multiple applications with Oracle, Oracle performs the IQ and they publish the IQ. In the case of NetSuite, we're not there yet, but USDM, in partnership with NetSuite, we can support that and provide multiple different ways to address that gap. Whether we use, as an alternate bridge solution like DocuSign, or we use a paper-based system, whatever it is, you can have a NetSuite system running manufacturing or a PCG system running manufacturing that can be fully compliant. So that's not going to be a hold for any customer to move into the cloud using NetSuite applications. So for the regulation, just so you have an idea about what, I'm not going to go in detail into every single one of the use cases because there are multiple depending on the requirements and the needs and the industry and the product that the life science company develops or builds, or the services that they provide as well. But most of the regulated use cases turn around the item and material management statuses and all the different regulation that we have with CFR Part 11 compliance. E-record is signatures, audit trails, like I said, controls for manufacturing, work orders. There are multiple use cases, and we have experience along with NetSuite, PCG, to validate those, not just to provide a solid solution for those, an innovative solution, an efficient solution, but we also have to provide all the documentation that makes that system compliant. And that is always important because every customer in life sciences, they are required to have their systems that touch any product, any patient to be compliant. And we can provide that and cover that gap. As part of this product, we have built a product called Cloud Assurance. Myself, I manage this product at USDM for the Oracle NetSuite systems and environments and procedures. But we also cover multiple different software companies across the ecosystem that we have, like DocuSign, like Azure, Google. There are different systems that we have this product for. In the case of Oracle and NetSuite, we use the same approach across the applications. And to put it in a nutshell, it's just like a two-punch, right? First, we make sure that the system is fully compliant. We can work on that during the implementation or after the system has been implemented. Some companies actually do that, and they call us to make sure the system is compliant, and they run, on paper base until we validate their system. Like I say, in life sciences, if the system is a source of record for items, patient information, it must be compliant. So with this product, we bring that system to validate the state, and everything that we produce, the test scripts, protocols, documentation, OPQ, IQ. We use all those assets to maintain the compliant state of the system. And to do this, it sounds a little bit easier than what it is, but we perform and collaborate with NetSuite and Oracle to perform a risk assessment of all the new different features that come up with the release, with the quarterly release or the regular releases. So we've performed that risk assessment. We identify any potential gaps. We provide a solution or a remediation for those gaps, which could be a specific bug that impacts one of the procedures, an SOP that needs to be changed, a new feature that has a different navigation. All of that we cover. So then, as we get new patches, because the system is not going to change, right? You're going to have new requirements. We're going to have bug fixes. We're going to have new solutions added or new modules added into the scope. We can cover for that as part of the maintenance of the system. And in the right-hand side, you can see multiple artifacts that we produce, right? I'm not going to go one by one, but we're going to provide the access to you to review this in detail. So I'm going to stop here to give you some of the benefits. Being in the cloud brings the companies multiple benefits and efficiencies. But like I said, in life sciences, it's not necessarily a good thing that you get all these different, changes or regular changes in your system. Actually, it's seen negatively by some of the QA departments. So what we do is, we provide this product to support the cloud system to make sure that it's fully compliant and that you can take advantage of the different benefits that a system like NetSuite can provide. You don't have to worry about infrastructure. You don't have to worry about patches. Oracle is going to do that for you. You don't have to worry about big bang upgrades or new, re-implementations of your system. But you have to worry about, keeping the system in a validated state. So those are the main benefits that we provide. Like I said, USDM has been in the market for multiple years. We have multiple references for different systems, including NetSuite. And we try to build this product in a way that is scalable. So anytime that your solution doesn't have to get stuck, all the different innovations that you can get from PCG, from NetSuite, or other satellite solutions, we can incorporate and make them part of that solution without doing a re-implementation or revalidation of the whole system. That's kind of the key benefit area that we need to highlight here. And I'm going to pass it over back to Peter. Thank you, guys.
All right. Hey, thanks, Alex. I'm going to go ahead and grab the screen. And put it in. Okay, Paul, let me know if you can see SmartFactory, the cover screen.
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks. All right, so SmartFactory, hybrid SuiteApp, as we talked about, and what it does is gives our customers the power to build by extending NetSuite manufacturing through very much a suite success enabled delivery mechanism as well as the product itself. What we'll get into today are the life science specific elements of SmartFactory. SmartFactory is really it's a suite of apps, and today we'll go in and out of electronic batch records, kitting, the shop floor bundle, and then we'll spend some time in NetSuite as well, illustrating the elements that SmartFactory enables out in Suite Analytics. You see some other apps available. We have a production staging app that we're working on, as well as more of a pre-production setup type app. Won't see all of those today in the interest of time, but we'll focus on really electronic batch records and kitting. The key points with SmartFactory is just like NetSuite, the integration that maps data from NetSuite to SmartFactory and back to NetSuite is the same for all customers. So just like all NetSuite platform users are on the same core code, the same holds true with anyone using the SmartFactory SuiteApp. So we like to say with SmartFactory, everything starts and ends in NetSuite. So the item masters, your bill of materials, your routings, your work centers, all of those are configured in NetSuite. And for those of you that are already on the platform, you know what I mean by that. So as long as NetSuite is creating through supply planning or another partner tool valid WIP work orders, those can be mapped down to SmartFactory, and all the relevant information for the shop team is readily available for them. So whether they're working at an older traditional work center with no connectivity, or you want to take advantage of machine integration to work directly with the equipment and receive signals, all of that is possible. So as you're executing work orders on the shop floor, collecting that data through SmartFactory, it all maps back to NetSuite for two primary purposes: to drive work order completions and all the related transactions in NetSuite that keeps your inventory, your GL accurate and up to date. And as I'll show you, it drives a variety of operating reports through Suite Analytics, which every user of the platform has at their disposal, and we want to give you the opportunity to take great advantage of that. So in the spirit of how NetSuite is very scalable for the customer base, so is SmartFactory. Everybody starts with the shop floor bundle, and then you use the appropriate add-ons depending on what's relevant for your processing environment and the needs of your company. So whether you're adding on machine integration, process history, EBR, and kitting, everything is built for NetSuite. Suite Success Ready, as I mentioned, highly stairway compatible, so add modules when it makes sense, and obviously it's IoT enabled in order to drive the machine integration. Some of the basic functions that SmartFactory is providing in the ways that people think of MES: interactive work instructions, all the fundamental manufacturing reporting for production, for downtime, for labor, for material loss or scrap, the ability to capture elements that are critical for, regulatory compliance, and as Alex was saying, operating in a fashion that can be easily validated and for you to remain in a compliant state. The integration is the same. We take care of that as a SuiteApp naturally. We're challenged every release of NetSuite to earn our stripes, so you have great confidence that your data has good integrity throughout the process. And from a quality perspective, you may be using NetSuite Quality for a lot of elements within your process. I'll show you some things with SmartFactory that can nicely complement where inspections aren't necessarily triggered by a transaction, such as a pre-op checklist, possibly an inline metal detector check, and so forth. So the key, all the data as you're capturing information on the shop floor to execute that work center or work order, is feeding in real-time updates back to NetSuite. Last slide that I'll speak to, I'll just flash a few others so you recognize they'll be available in the handout. I want to really stress that SmartFactory, the integration is standardized. Suite Success enabled, and it's consistent for every customer. Really important. We don't do anything in a one-off mode. That's just not a satisfying experience for anyone. SmartFactory, however, is also very dynamic. And what's fun for my team representing the delivery side of the organization, it's very easy for our team to personalize data structures, personalize data capture for your needs that might be very nuanced for your operation, and it's highly scalable, as I mentioned. So as you add work centers, as you add items, as you add processes, just like that is easy to update in NetSuite. All of that through our integration scripting maps over to SmartFactory. You constantly stay in sync. There's a little matrix out here. I won't talk a lot about that today. I want to really get into the solution, but it kind of compares native NetSuite with advanced manufacturing with what SmartFactory, really brings to the table to round out your solution set. These next couple slides, just showing them to you in the slide view so you recognize a lot of what you're going to see in the demo is going to be available to you to really take home as a handout and as a reference, and happy to go back over anything with anyone participating on the call today at a later date or a deeper dive where it makes sense. And you'll see all these things as we go out to the solution. The only prerequisites for SmartFactory are pretty basic. We're looking for whip and routings. Our initial apps that we launched, customers that want that command and control of both operational steps as well as the financial fidelity that whip and routings brings, we want to build on top of that. You need bin management, advanced bins, and inventory management. Naturally, most of you in life sciences are somehow operating with lot controlled or serialized items. Naturally, that enables that in inventory status. That's it. The rest builds on the configuration that if you're already a NetSuite customer, you've probably already got this all accomplished. Let's go out and see what SmartFactory can really do to augment your process. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off in NetSuite because it all starts and ends in NetSuite naturally. You're looking at my home dashboard right now. This is just a standard NetSuite demo account that we use. One thing I'd just point out as we're looking at the dashboard is all of my portlets are from Suite Analytics. And you could see that I'm looking at an operating report, a downtime Pareto, labor cost analysis. You see I have batch analysis and comparing variables on the left side. All of these are part of what we offer through Suite Analytics that, just like everything else in NetSuite, can easily be part of the dashboard of what's relevant for you. So as an orientation, I'm just going to do a quick here's what we're going to look at today, and here's what a work order that we're going to run. So we have a multi-level product here. It's personal products, it's soap product. It gets packaged in cases, but what we're going to zero in on is the actual soap itself because it's made in batches. I want to share that capability with you today. And what we're going to do is go out and execute one batch of a blending operation so you can see how both the kitting app and the blending app work together in concert with capturing all other operational data through an EBR that you may be responsible for. So when you install SmartFactory, we have set up the settings helps you. We use this during configuration. Your administrators may use it as you scale. A couple dispatch lists that we'll go take a look at. And then the reporting, the product run is really key for us. What we call product run supports that ability for partial work order completions or where you may have a work order for a significant quantity that requires you to cycle a blender, a vessel, a mixer multiple times. The product run becomes that batch record that you're looking to capture. So when I go out to my dispatch list, what we're going to zero in on, and I'm actually going to create a work order right in front of you just so you get a good sense for how rapid that the integration to SmartFactory is I'm going to go out to my SmartFactory player. I'm going to go ahead and change my location. And here's where you get a sense for, depending on how you've scaled the product, you have various apps presented to you. So I'm going to go ahead and check in. You could see it easily supports multiple locations. I'm going to go over to my kitting operation. I'm going to confirm that's where I am. Now I'm operating and showcasing this as an administrator, so I have access to everything. And I'm going to go over to the kitting app. Now, depending on the customer scenario, the likelihood is for individual users, they're dialed into specific areas where they that's all where they work. But the check-in app, if you do have operators that move around, I can either tell the system I'm going to be here all day and never have to tell it ever again, or I can move around as I need to. So the important piece with kitting is for, if you're already on NetSuite and you don't have a kitting operation as a routing step, you do not need it. So I'm going to go ahead and select that I'm kitting for the New Jersey blending operation, and you see no work orders appeared. So let's go over to NetSuite and create one. And the reason that it doesn't show anything right now, all of the work orders that I have that are still in process, you could see they've already completed the blending operations. They're just awaiting inspection. So we're going to take work order 849 here. We're going to copy it. And I'm going to set it up for a quantity of 600. And the reason I'm doing that is that, and I'll show you the item here in a second. And we'll come back to this bill of material. I'm just going to go ahead and put in for 600. The blender accommodates 200 pounds. And what's going to happen is we obviously have to cycle this 3 times. And what we'll do is we'll execute that first batch today. So I'm going to go ahead and save this in a release state. And again, that status is important because we don't bring it over to SmartFactory until it is in a release state. But let's go take a look at this item very quickly, again, just as an orientation. So the production BOM that we'll be using has 4 components. They are all lot controlled, as you might expect. We're going to kit 3 of them, and then we're going to actually issue the largest one right at the blender through a bulk dispenser, and just to kind of give you a sense for what's possible. I want to go back to the item, show you the routing quickly. It's 2 steps. We'll probably just execute the one today for expediency, because the key takeaways with the EBR and kitting all is going to occur at this batching step. So you can see it's 2 steps. I blend and I inspect. I don't have a kitting operation. And I want to reinforce that, because if you're already running on NetSuite and you like the kit, it doesn't require you to go rebuild all the new routings. If you're new to NetSuite and prefer not to have a kitting operation called out in the bill of material, there's no requirement for that. So let's go back and see what work order we've created. We've created 850. If I come back over to my kitting application, there you could see for the blending operation, there's now a work order 850 out there. So let's go out and get this kitted up. And you could see that it immediately recognizes, because I have 600 pounds, I need to create 3 containers or 3 kits to support 3 batches. So what I'm going to do first, I'm going to go ahead and create a container. And I typically, my convention is I like to just call it the work order number and which batch I'm running. And we're going to put this in a tote. This tote's well, actually, to make it more disposable, we're going to put it in a bag. You can have permanent containers that have to return once you've done a sanitation cycle of it, and you tell it where you want to bring it back to. But for ease of use today, I'm going to go ahead and create a disposable container. And what you see Now I have that container available to me. I'm going to go ahead and select it, and I'm going to fill it. And the reason I pointed out that bill of material to you, there you see it presents it to me. So what I have, just to kind of simulate, I was in a kitting area, I have a sheet of barcodes, you know, as if I had the actual items in front of me, and I just have a tethered scanner to my laptop, you know, just for simplicity. So I'm going to go ahead and scan the first item there, scan the lot number, and you could see that it's broken down for me what is my quantity to be kitted to satisfy a batch. And my instrumentation is pretty precise, but not exact. If I have a scale that's connected to SmartFactory, I could read it directly from there. I don't have that luxury sitting here in my home office, so I'm just going to do it manually. You see it's added that. Let's go ahead and put the other two items in. It's reading the barcodes. I'm going to put this one in at 13.18. And I'm calling that out because I just want you to see how that progresses through the process as we go along. The last one that I'll put in here is the tallow acid. And it's picking up on my barcodes. When I'm saving this, I'll put this one in at 1320 just so it's a number that sticks out to everybody. Behind the scenes, when you try to add an item, we're also doing a validation to make sure that that is a valid lot or it's a valid serial number in NetSuite according to the inventory detail live as you're doing it. So those are all good. We're going to go over to the batching operation. I now have a container available. It's in use. You could see my contents. If I needed to do any number of steps, I can. But what's important for me today, I just want to get it over to my blending operation. And what we've just done behind the scenes, we've moved that container over to production. So SmartFactory operates in a staging bin requirement, and we put the finished product in a assembly bin, just like NetSuite Manufacturing Mobile does, or Advanced Manufacturing does something similar. So what we've just done is we've taken it from our kitting area and we've staged that container and physically that's been moved. We've just allowed SmartFactory to do that transaction. So we're done with the kitting application. I would just continue with the other two containers if I'm building them in advance of the blending. But let's go over to the blender now and go ahead and execute the rest of the batch. So I'm just going to check in one more time. I'm going to go to that check-in app, hit the wrong button there. Takes me, it knows I'm still in New Jersey. This time I'm going over to the blender, confirm my activity. And why that's important is my work queue, as it's presented to me, is filtered by what work center that I'm signed into. So you see my 850, but I want to go back to NetSuite to show you one other thing before we execute this work order. So if I go back to my lot number for what we're running here, I want to go to my SmartFactory tab because we know what's essential. And everybody in life science is regulated. Frankly, all the guys on our team, we've all worked in manufacturing for many, many years. And frankly, we've always considered that every customer is regulated, if by no one other than themselves, to be all they can be. And we believe every customer has continuous improvement as a fundamental day-to-day where they've got to be a little better tomorrow than today, or even better the next shift, or that better the next batch. So what SmartFactory is also trying to enable for manufacturers, you see under my SmartFactory tab, we've identified for this particular operation, what are all the critical process control variables that are going to influence making product that's compliant. And you see a variety of different things related to blending speed, vessel temperatures, vessel humidity, target water temperature, targets, upper and lower control limits, all of that, we want to kind of capture that in NetSuite if you don't have it anywhere else. Now, if you're already using tools, that's perfectly fine. I just show you this. So, NetSuite as your single source of the truth, we really try to make it that. So just wanted to show you this first. It becomes very important as we go out and execute the batch. So I'm going to go ahead and start this work order. I'm back over in SmartFactory. I'm still on first shift here. I'm on Eastern time today. You could see that, and here's another differentiator. NetSuite work orders, the work orders for 600, it doesn't really distinguish batches and native NetSuite at the work order level, but because we've configured behind the scenes, what is this blender capable of? It knows it's a batch target of 200. My work orders for 600. So I've got 3 batches I've got to knock out. It defaults a soft lot number initially, and it's just a mask of today's date with the first batch. Let's go ahead and start the run. And then I want to point out one other key element of integration that really is a bedrock of data integrity. You see this 2601, this very small number up here in red. I show you that that's an internal ID created in NetSuite. So I'm going to bounce back over to native NetSuite one more time because I want everyone to be very comfortable with the process. Here's our product run record. I've had it open. I'm going to go ahead and refresh my screen. There's 2601. This internal ID is created in NetSuite, mapped to SmartFactory, and just like NetSuite uses lot or serial control to enable lot trace of all the materials, we use a similar concept, and this internal ID is going to be forever associated with any operational reporting that I'm about to show you. So you have good integrity of your data, that you're confident in your compliance and whatever is required for an audit. So my work order is started. I've got a timer started in the background. It's helping me keep track of how efficient I am. I'm going to start at my standardized work instructions. Then I'm going to show you what's possible here. These can be as simple or as complex as possible. In this case, you only see a couple simple illustrations, but the first one says, hey, follow that spec sheet. So the reason I showed you that in NetSuite, if you needed a paper document, we could have launched one for you. If not, we're trying to do everything paperlessly on the shop floor, obviously, to avoid any kind of contamination. There you see all those processing variables that I just pointed out. I may actually have a much more defined, significantly detailed SOP. Let's go out and make sure we can grab that. So depending on what you're using for document control, I can easily launch to myself any type of approved QA engineering set of operating instructions to make sure that I execute this batch as correctly, as safely, as accurately as possible. So this will remain available to me as I need it. The last thing that I just point out, this instruction says, hey, all those processing variables, make sure that you complete the operational side of this as you're going through this batch, because that's critical as part of our EBR and our records that we have to show that I did this correctly, which, I'll do for you. All right, so let's go back out to our materials. There's my bill of material again, but this time, because I've kitted a portion of it, there's the kit that you just saw me make. There's the items that you saw me load. There's the numbers that I suggested I made different just so it'd be ease of, hey, I just saw Ken do that over in the kitting area. Let's go ahead and dispense them to this blender. And you could see we're just taking those kitted materials, we're moving them into that blender. If I needed to prove that to you, I'm not going to end the run, but I want to just show you that if I go out here to my end run, I look at my detail, there's those materials. They're now part of this run at the blending operation, and they're ready for material issue. So we're going to go back. I'm going to cancel my end run here, but I just wanted to show you that timeliness. Let's go back out to our materials. I've got to do my bulk entry. I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to scan that barcode, but I'm purposely going to corrupt it. That is a very false lot number, as you'll see in a minute. Now here, if I'm not kidding, you see that the work order quantity is represented to me, but it defines what's the batch quantity. And again, my measurement system's pretty good, but not exacting. And I'm just going to enter manually 205. It's going to throw a penalty flag because that's an invalid lot. So let's just reset the scanner, make sure I get this right. So we try to poke-yoke the process as much as possible. It's going to be the same value. I'm going to go ahead and hit save, and I'm good to go. I'm not going to go out to end run this time, but we'll come back to that in the end. So as I progress across my tabs, I can enter downtime if I need to. We tailor it. It recognizes what work center we're at. If we are using machine integration, I may be taking this signal directly from an OPC tag. I don't have that luxury today, so I'm going to go ahead and enter these. Not only did I have a problem with the bowl lift, I was struggling with that electrical panel. So it's just designed to make it easy for an operator that doesn't have the luxury of connectivity to just get that information in there very quickly. For scrap, it brings over the bill of material. It allows me to select the item, what were the possible reasons, but because I followed my work instructions, my supervisor's watching me today. I've done an excellent job. I have no scrap. I have the opportunity to report labor as well. This is really designed, if I'm working independently, I may be able to take it directly off my login. I want to kind of represent my crew. And you can see we try to capture straight time or overtime hours. That way to distinguish not only the rates that select skill codes may make. If I'm operating on overtime, naturally the cost of this work order is going to be a little bit higher. We want to make sure behind the scenes that we're associating the right labor dollars with this operation, so it provides you as the user with the most accurate labor cost information, because it may not be the highest part of COGS. It rarely is anymore, but that's still very valuable if you have large crews. And I've been in on baking operations or packing operations where the crew could swing wildly from 12 to 40. So it's important to capture that. Now, before we report production, we've got to report on how well we've controlled this batch. Here's my batch parameters. Now, again, I'm going to enter it manually, but you see here, if I have connectivity available to me, I might be capturing steady state for any of these parameters right off my equipment. If I need to, I have the opportunity to go out and get a sense from some run charts available to me. How well has my process been trending? I'm going to go ahead and check out these first two before I make my entries. But the information is always available to the operator as need be. So like I said, I'm sitting above the garage. I'm actually just going to enter these manually. You can enter a variety. It'll accept all kinds of different data elements. For the most part, these are all numbers. I do have the ability to, I'll do a Boolean here. I don't have any validations turned on today, but the ability to catch an error or flag something that's not the spec is readily available. I just wanted to get through this so you could see all this. I'm going to check I followed the SOP. And what's important to everybody, as Alex noted, I have the opportunity to comment. I'm going to sign off with my badge number that, yes, to the best of my ability, here's how well I've controlled batch number 1 for, work order 850. I'm going to go ahead and save that information. And I can move over to enter production. Now, this is an example label of what's possible. I'm going to go ahead and put the first 200 in, go ahead and save that. this is just for illustration. Your labeling needs, whatever they need to be, we're able to satisfy that. I had the opportunity for production notes for other information, maybe launch a kappa or some type of non-conformance. I can do that through notes potentially. And I'm going to go ahead and save this. We'll end the run, go back over to NetSuite and see the impact of what's happening in our system in real time. I may come back to this just to show you the auditing capability. So you could see my header updated. It recognizes I've got 200 to 400 to do. We'll go ahead and end the run. And I'm going to go back to, and you can see it's summarizing the components for EBR purposes. It's populated some of my run summary data. I'm going to go out and take a look at this in greater detail. So we first looked at what I dispensed from my kit, and you see it picked up that bulk entry of that sodium tallowate for 205 pounds in the lot. That NetSuite kept me honest, made me issue the right lot. There it is. There's the hours I've reported. And this screen's important because I have the opportunity to edit anything before I officially get it over to NetSuite. This was actually 8 minutes, not 3. Let's go ahead and make that correct, because we're deadly serious about continuous improvement and accounting for capacity. So it's not testable, but remember there's 14 minutes of downtime. Everything else looks fine. We'll go ahead and end this run, go over to NetSuite and see what happens. If I was complete at this operation, I'd check this box. I've got a couple more batches to do. I'll go ahead and confirm the end. We've got our scripts are running right now, sending this information to NetSuite, takes me back to my screen, and I'm not going to do a second batch. I just want to show you what happens. The system's savvy. It recognizes I've got 3 batches to do. It acknowledges the one I just completed, tees me up for batch number 2, and I'm off to the races in a very consistent process. So with that, I'll go back. And let's go over to NetSuite and see the impact of what I just initiated on the shop floor. We'll go ahead and start with this smart product run list. We'll just go ahead and update that. And you'll see it captured my start time, and it's now populated everything else. To include my labor costs, the downtime, there's those 14 minutes I asked you to remember. And then as importantly, you could see from the shop floor, through my efforts, I initiated a work order completion. So if you're using NetSuite and you're doing things in a back office mode, and it might be a day late and feels like $1 short, or it's just not timely enough, I just did that essentially in near real time. So if we go out to this work order, for those of you that are using NetSuite, you know what's going to happen here. As I refresh this, it now reflects that I have activity to this work order. There's my items, and you could see my used and build reflects what I issued. The smaller items I kitted, there's my bulk issue, and there's the numbers I used, so it was easy for recognition. From the operations tab, it's going to acknowledge that, yeah, I got the first batch of 200 done. And, I have a related record. There's more of that integration. We called it out on our product run. There it is. Let's open this up quickly, because I just want to emphasize from a lot trace perspective. Here's the inventory detail. There's the sodium tallowate that you watch me bulk issue. Until I entered a valid lot number that had been staged in the in bin, it didn't accept it. So I'm good to go. I've got traceability all the way back from the vendor that sent me this, that I received, to wherever I use this and wherever this soap goes and ultimately gets fulfilled pushing forward. And for those items that I kitted, not that everybody remembers this, but there's where I used there's where I took advantage of, what I was able to kit. There it is. And with anything in NetSuite, any transaction has an immediate GL impact. And based on my bill of material, the cost of those items, plus my cost template for that operation, there you could see the various items that I'm tracking and accounting for that are in WIP accounts until I close this work order and everything appropriately moves to COGS or inventory accounts. Accounting's not my specialty naturally, but I do recognize that my debits and credits balance, so I'm good to go as I'm progressing through this work order. Last thing that I wanted to just share with you, and then we'll go back to SmartFactory for look at auditing quickly, is what we've built in Suite Analytics. Again, when you get SmartFactory, you're getting 4 to 5 different workbooks in Suite Analytics that are going to provide, you know, up to about 20 different reports to look at. I have those open, and what I would share with you as part of our Suite Analytics, we always use a combination of pivot tables and graphics, recognizing that everybody's out there doing a lot of data analysis, so nothing beats a pivot table to harness everything. Let me go ahead and close the pivot table builder just to buy a little more real estate. And this is representing what an operating report might look like as it builds during the week. So here you can see day to day, shift to shift, what work centers, what items was I making. The work order number itself may not be as important if I'm really analyzing assemblies. The beauty, Suite success, this is what it looks like on day 1. Modify it to your needs on day 2 so it's even better, and you know, so on and so on. But you see all the relevant operating metrics are available to you in terms of what I produce, how many hours did I earn, based on the duration of that run that we were tracking, you know, how efficient was I, how many units per hour. We actually calculate downtime that you should have recorded, just to kind of, and here's a scenario where, you know, based on my performance, I should have came up with 9.5 minutes of downtime. I only reported 5. You could see for some of these other cases, I reported more downtime. Perfectly fine to account for everything going on, but we, you know, here's a teachable moment where, guys, we got to be a little bit better to capture everything that's going on that we want to improve upon. And there you see, based on how I used my crews, what was the approximate actual labor cost of that crew composition and the time that they were out there? What does that do to me in terms of units per labor hour if you track productivity from kind of a broader metric? Or if I really want to take a look at what's the labor dollars per unit impact of that? The graphics include different ways to look at. Here's comparing some of the key work centers day to day. They didn't all necessarily run every day. This graphic is showcasing some of the top items. How are they doing on an average efficiency perspective? And you can see there's some variation in the process, which certainly signifies there's some opportunity. As I go over to downtime, same thing. We always provide you the pivot table so your analysts have the ability to dice and slice in any way that they want to. Always give you a couple starting points that then you can make your own. So whether you want to look at a lot of data or you're having a review meeting and absolutely nothing beats the traditional Pareto, where if I really don't understand what's going on, but at least I can tell my supervisor, hey, we're going to focus on the one on the left. You know, if I can prioritize and understand what's causing, you know, broken tooling, chances are I'm putting some time back up on the scoreboard and I'm putting more money in the piggy bank. So a variety of ways to spin the Paretos up depending on what's important to you. We'll look at labor quickly, same thing. Here's a breakdown of, and for, you know, this tends to be more relevant in packing operations, especially where packaging configurations cause you to flex your crews and change them. How well are those leads, those supervisors, using their crews to run different products? You know, where is overtime sneaking into the process? What's the impact that that's having on my labor component? Again, not likely the biggest percentage of COGS, but still important to a lot of people. The last one that I'll show you just as a means of kind of wrapping up, for that electronic batch record, what we're trying to do with SmartFactory is, and Suite Analytics, is enable the ability to say, how well can I correlate my process control to my product compliance? So again, in this pivot table, we're looking at some of those batch parameters that you saw I'm responsible to record, comparing item to item, day to day, work order to work order, batch number within the work orders. How well did I monitor my process or control it? And here, some of the data points are variable because we wanted to illustrate the power of conditional formatting to draw things to your eye. And then from a graphical perspective, how do we want to potentially look at comparing certain variables against other variables, or variables against compliance results that we're measuring based on some of these things? I may want to throw in here what was the ultimate, a mixed temperature, or I have mixed temperature in there. So you could see the ability of Suite Analytics to evaluate the process in a much greater level of detail. All of this is readily available. For some customers, they want everything back in NetSuite, like I'm showing you. For others, we may keep it on the SmartFactory side. The Tulip platform that we build upon offers its own database that may be sufficient if you want it in NetSuite. From a suite success perspective, it's very easy to do that. I'm going to go back over to SmartFactory quickly just to show you what the auditing potential might be. If I go into New Jersey, it's going to present the work orders, operation 10 batch numbers, anything that I'm working on. It has the ability to call up how well did I control that process. There's the variables. And as I slide down, you start to see even, what did I, went past it a little, what were the components, what were the lot numbers, what were the quantities? So the ability to compare batch 1 versus batch 2, from whether I'm doing it for a compliance audit, whether I'm doing it to show the customer, or whether I'm just doing it because we're dead serious about continuous improvement and we're eliminating variation wherever possible. So the audit mechanisms are readily available. The information's out there. It's in tables. It's over in NetSuite. The ability to launch a certificate of analysis is readily available, taking advantage of, the capability in NetSuite mining those appropriate records. So that was what I wanted to share with you. I'm just going to go back to one slide just to talk about machine monitoring quickly. And again, if you're using machine integration, the ability to have a heartbeat, the ability to look at over a period of time, how well have I been running, to get count points for throughputs, or present to the operators those key variables that they need to monitor, readily available, visible, and it's all about that visual factory so the team is doing the right thing. I'm going to cheat. I got a couple minutes. I'm going to go back to SmartFactory one more time. I'm actually going to change my app because in the demo setup here, I'm going to go ahead and stay within this blender, but I want to go out the shop floor just to show you some of what else is possible. And here's that dynamic flexibility of SmartFactory. Oops, I moused over that too quickly. Let me just go back to the blender. And what I have in the shop floor, the standard version, we have some different illustrations built out there. And one thing it just did, I had some open runs. Before I would let me start a new run, it pushed me over to the open runs to say, hey, do I want to actually complete those? So what I wanted to show you very quickly is there's a lot of flexibility within how those, whether it's for a device history record, whether it's for a batch history record, or whether it's just process history. If you have certain areas that are not regulated, but you still want to capture them for continuous improvement. The ability to create that user interface for whatever is required is very easy, with the ability to introduce sign-offs. What I want to do, I'm going to go out to these other three is what I wanted to show you. Here's a much more detailed device history record where this customer wanted to have it all within the framework of one step. You could see we tried to, what I showed you with SmartFactory is move through multiple steps just to make it maybe a little less daunting. Here's an illustration of being able to present information in multiple languages to make sure your operators are as successful as possible. And the last one I just wanted to show you, for those inspections, like I mentioned earlier, that aren't necessarily triggered by a specific transaction, here you could see set up is a variety of different pre-op inspections, where for the mixing, the sheeting, and the spiral freezer areas, they all have different requirements where you're expecting a go or a no-go. This was part of the design behind under the covers, and all of these are presented to the operator in a way that they're able to go through their pre-op. So I just wanted to kind of bring that to your attention as well, as part of, SmartFactory's ability to complement, NetSuite, QMS, or whatever else you may do. So you have as comprehensive a system as possible out on the shop floor. So with that, I'm going to go back to the slides and dial out to the end here. We have a couple minutes. I'm going to tag with Paul and see if there's any questions that may have come in that, Alex and I would be happy to answer.
Yes, if you have any questions, you can unmute yourself and go ahead and direct them to Alex, Peter, or to Ken, based upon USDM, NetSuite, or the SmartFactory as shown in the presentation today.
May not be any questions. What we'll just throw up on the slide there is there's a plethora of resources available to everybody. There are some additional slides we can send out as part of the appendix that Peter talked through all these, but those will be readily available to you. And then the resource slide we'll make sure has all the various links to NetSuite, USDM, SmartFactory, the website, the YouTube channel, so you're able to, review whatever you care to, at your leisure. So again, I'll just pause for questions. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, while people are thinking perhaps of questions, we did have a question come through in chat, and that was whether or not the presentation, as you've seen it today, will be made available. And what we will be doing in the next day or so is sending a link to all the attendees with access to the recorded presentation.
All right, well, I'll one last pause with no questions. You guys get a couple minutes back in your day. I'm sure that's highly valuable to everybody. We'd like to thank everybody for your participation today. Look forward to working with you on how to get the most optimization out of your NetSuite platform. And from PCG's perspective, thank you to all our co-presenters today, and hope everybody has a good day.
Thank you, everyone, for your time and attendance.
Yep, thank you.
Goodbye.